Hello there, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and blog. Today is Blog Hop Day for the Brutus Monroe Inspiration Team. So let's get started with our card. Today was Anything Goes, and so I grabbed this awesome fresh squeeze paper from Brutus Monroe, and oh my goodness, look at those vibrant colors. The lime and the yellow and the grapefruit colors, just really pretty colors. So these papers, they're just fun and cheery, and I just had to make a card with them as soon as I saw them. So I'm going to take out a couple of those patterns, but I was inspired by the pattern papers, and so I'm going to do some ombre stamping. Now, if you've never done this before, you will definitely want some form of a stamp positioner, like a Misti or a stamp platform or something, and you'll just put your stamp right in there. I am using the Grateful stamp from Brutus Monroe, and I've chosen the colors Abandoned Coral for my first color, so I'm stamping that down or inking that up. I am using my microfiber cloth to soften the edge, and then I'll move on to the next color, and this color is Mustard Seed, and I'll do that once again with my microfiber cloth, but I'm going to do it on both ends. I'm just softening up both of those edges so there aren't harsh lines where I stamp. And then I'll close the door of the Misti, always making sure that I'm pushing my card right back into that corner there, the left bottom corner. And then my final color is Twisted Citron, which I will do across the bottom, and once again grab my microfiber cloth to soften the edge, and then I'll stamp that down. I decided to do one more thing with this stamp, which was to clean it off, because I am going to ink it up one more time with something, and I'm using my Squeaky cleaner from Brutus Monroe. I'll have everything that I've used listed down below so that you can find it easily down in the description box. Now I'm going to grab my Icicle, which is a clear embossing powder, and it's ultra fine, and then my embossing ink as well. I'm going to ink up my stamp one last time, just using the embossing ink, which is just clear, and I'm going to stamp that right over the top of my sentiment. And then I will pull that out, and I'm going to cover that with the Icicle embossing powder. Now, it wasn't important or imperative in this case to use like a magic powder bag like I typically do, because if that powder happens to stick other places, it's clear, so it's not going to show. And this way, you'll get this gorgeous, gorgeous look once you heat set your embossing powder. So you're going to see it start to melt, and then it's just going to add this gorgeous shine to the color, so it makes it stand out even more, as if those colors themselves, the Abandoned Coral, Mustard Seed, and Twisted Citron, weren't pretty enough. You add a little bit of shine to it, and it just really makes it pop. So I'll hold it up to the light here so you can see just how nice that is, and that's another way that the stamp positioner comes in super, super handy. And I'm going to clean off my stamp one last time just to make sure that I have it good and clean. And I do have some staining. I've used this stamp a few times already. And then I'll put it away, but the staining doesn't really bother me. So anyway, moving on, I'm going to grab out the papers. And so these are the two patterns that I have chosen. And this part is going to be my background paper. So I'm cutting it down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. So it isn't going to take up the full length or full A2 front of a card. It's going to have a little bit of a white border. And then I'm just trimming down all around my sentiment, because I don't want it to be too big. So I've got that, I basically went up almost right to the line. I'm measuring it now because I want to cut the little grapefruit pattern to fit just around it, so it'll have a nice little border around it. And so I'm just trimming that down once I've kind of measured. Real scientific there, I just used my eyes. And that lines up pretty well. So that's how it's going to look once it's on there. And I love that sentiment. There is always something to be grateful for, because yes, there sure is. My card base is just some heavyweight white cardstock that I had cut down to 4 1/4 by 11 inches and scored at 5 1/2 inches. I'm going to use some liquid glue to adhere my first panel down to my card base. And then, like I said, it'll give it a nice little white border. And then I'm going to use that liquid glue again to adhere my sentiment down to my grapefruit border, or border paper. And then I decided I really wanted to add a little bit of dimension, because there wasn't a lot of dimension to this card or anything else. But before I do that, I do take the one strip of pattern paper and I stick it on the inside. That's just a fun way sometimes to add a little bit of interest to the inside of your card, and that way you're not throwing away a bunch of scraps of paper. You're using them. I'm going to use the very little bit of my Scotch foam tape that I have left, It seems like all of my adhesives are on the brink of being done, and that's like, in my opinion, that's not necessarily something fun to buy. It's just something you need, but you got to have the right tools for the job. That's what my stepdad always says, the right tools always make things a little bit easier. And he's right. So I've peeled off the backing paper and I stuck the sentiment down, and now it's got a little bit of lift to it. I'm going to add a few of these little Studio Katia Sunny Side Up 6mm sequins. I don't know if those are still available, but if I can find them, I will link them. They aren't showing a whole lot here on the screen because they're fairly translucent, so you can kind of see through them a little bit. But once I do another final touch to it, you'll get to see them a little bit more. So I'll grab my crystal katana along with my liquid glue, and I'm going to adhere each of those sequins down. Like I said, they aren't standing out a whole lot right now, but they will here in a second, because I'm also going to grab some Morning Dew crystal drops, which are just the clear version, almost like a glossy accent, but these are the Nuvo version. And then I'm going to add a little drop to the center of each of these sequins, so that way when these dry, they'll really, really pop. But before I do that, I'm going to tap them down just a little bit to make it so that they're not so raised. And then they'll kind of fill out those sequins a little bit more. And when I'm done with that, that's going to finish off this card. So if you like this card, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thank you always for commenting and leaving some love. And I will have a link to my blog down below. So go head to my blog so that way you can check out the links to the other Inspiration Team members' blogs so you can see what they've done for this week. And as always, guys, thank you so much for stopping by.